This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash and Christopher Mitchell. Several days have passed since the daring heist aboard the Decepticon warship, which not only allowed them to rescue the captured bulkhead, but also acquire the complete list of encrypted Project Iacon files. In that time, Optimus has been hard at work decrypting these so that he and his team can recover the relics before the Decepticons can get their sinister servos on them. Meanwhile, for the most part, the other Autobots have been left to their own devices, which in RC's case is the worst thing that could happen, as without the pressing urgency of action and combat, she has no choice but to dwell on what she did while aboard the warship. Though she does not regret that Ratchet is dead, far from it, she cannot help but feel disquieted by the way she died, and the ease with which she, RC, was able to blast a helpless prisoner. Not only that, but in spite of reminding herself of everything awful Arachnid did, especially to tailgate, the sense of satisfaction, of closure she'd been waiting for never comes, leaving only doubt in its place. Not wanting to burden her friends with this, she begins confiding in Starscream, with the Jetbot appearing remarkably sympathetic, as he assures her that such acts are never pleasant, but they are necessary, especially in war. But there is no point in dwelling on them, as such baggage only weighs one down. In truth, the only actions Starscream has ever regretted are the ones that have brought harm or embarrassment down on himself, but he knows better than to say any of this, having become quite adept at holding his tongue since joining the Autobots, and so continues playing the role of contrite confidant until Prime summons the team to attend him, as he has an announcement. Gathering round the base's central console, the Autobots bear witness to a set of 4 coordinates, all on disparate parts of the globe, with Prime explaining that these are the first set of Cybertronian relics he has managed to uncover. For the sake of efficiency, they will all split into teams of 2 and retrieve the relics simultaneously, as that way the Decepticons will hopefully not learn about their activities until it is too late. Wanting to keep an optic on RC and ensure she doesn't crack under the weight of her troublesome guilt, Starscream volunteers to partner with her, as they've proven to be effective together, though here Prime refuses him, stating that RC's relic is buried underground in something called a subway, a nest of human-sized tunnels which he will be unable to maneuver in effectively, so RC will be partnered with Bumblebee, while Starscream's highest and best use will be to accompany Bulkhead. Speaking up now, Ratchet surmises that this means he and Optimus will make up the final team, though shaking his head, the red and blue leader replies that he will be heading to Antarctica alone, while Ratchet will be working with Wheeljack, since pairing with a seasoned warrior will allow the duo to compensate for each other's weaknesses. Though clearly unhappy with this, the Doctor stoically accepts his leader's commands, and so when the entirety of Team Prime is assembled, they begin heading through the ground bridge in waves, while Raph and Agent Fowler wish them luck as the ones staying behind to monitor comms and work the ground bridge. First off the rank are RC and Bumblebee, accompanied by Jack and Miko as they arrive in New York City and begin making their way down into the subway. Unfortunately for them, this is not going to be the milk run they had hoped for, as while the Decepticon warship never gained sentience and used that to decrypt the coordinates for the cons, they do have one advantage in this timeline that they did not in canon. It took longer for Starscream to arrive and cause Orion Pax to doubt Megatron, meaning he had more time to work on Project Iacon, thus giving Soundwave a more completed version of the puzzle to finish. As a result, the Decepticons now also have the location of the initial 4 relics, and so Knockout is assigned to retrieve the New York one, this time with some Vehicons as Breakdown is deceased and the Insecticons never awoke and joined Megatron. For the most part, the initial stretch of this mission therefore goes as canon, right up until RC and Bumblebee stumble upon the Decepticon mining operation, as with no big nasty bug to get the jump on them, they instead succeed in ambushing Knockout and his small contingent of miners, forcing them to surrender. Figuring they might as well make use of what the cons started, Bumblebee descends into the hole to retrieve the relic, while RC shepherds their prisoners to one side, where she holds them at blaster point. Naturally, Knockout uses this opportunity to complain, though RC is mostly able to tune this out. That is, until he mentions Arachnid. In actuality, what he had been saying is the spider's drilling ability would have made this tedious task easy, though RC does not hear that. All she hears is the name of her nemesis and freezes. It is only a momentary lapse in focus, but that is all it takes for someone as sly and shrewd as Knockout to notice, with him capitalizing by leaping into the air and assuming his vehicle mode, though when he strikes her chest, she is knocked onto her back, allowing the Vehicons to point their blaster arms at her, turning the tables. Subsequently, when Bumblebee emerges a minute later, it is to a smirking Doctor, who orders him to hand over the relic or the two-wheeler gets it. Defiantly, RC orders B to take the kids and run, but being too much of a sweetheart to ever abandon a comrade, the scout lets out a defeated buzz, then offers Knockout the object, a strange disc of indeterminate function. Cackling gleefully, the glossy red racer gloats that it was a pleasure doing business with them. Then, transforming once more, he and his cohorts set off. Rushing over to her, Jack, Miko, and B all ask if RC is okay, though scowling, she replies that she's not. She let herself be distracted, and now the cons have the relic. Perceptively, Jack questions how that happened as she's usually so focused, but these last few days she's been distant even with him, causing the bike to say that she's just been working through some stuff, though now's not the time, as they need to catch up to Knockout. Transforming now too, RC and Bumblebee along with their human passengers give chase, using Miko's knowledge of subway systems and, shall we say, lax view on obeying signs, to create a shortcut for themselves that allows them to come alongside Knockout. Wanting to prove his utility, Jack tells his allies that he'll get the relic, in an act of bravery and minor stupidity, pulls off his helmet and hurls it through Knockout's passenger side window. Naturally, this incenses the vain Decepticon doctor, though this is not the end. Far from it, as when RC veers in as close as she can without crushing Jack's leg against Knockout's door, the boy leans in and snatches the mystery disc right off his dashboard. Almost blind with rage now, Knockout takes this chance to transform, forcing Jack to hastily pull his hand back or else risk losing it. And speaking of losing it, that is precisely what Knockout is doing, as he thrusts a hand forward to crush boy and bike alike, only for his arm to pass right through his enemies. Sharing the Decepticon medic's confusion, RC and Jack realize that in the scramble to pull away, the relic latched onto the boy's wrist, with its effect revealing that it must be a phase shifter. Now knowing what it is, as well as what it can do, the game becomes much simpler, as while B and Miko break off to make their way back to the surface, Jack and RC lead Knockout deeper in. Then, when they certainly won't be able to find his way out after them, they drive headlong into a solid wall and ascend back to the surface. Coming out in an isolated alley, the two partners then make some calls, first to Bumblebee to rendezvous, and then to Raph, as it's time to go home. Autobots 1, Decepticons 0. Meanwhile, down at the bottom of the world, Optimus has encountered an opponent of his own, this being Dreadwing, as they both arrive at the coordinates at the same time, only to discover the artifact has been dug up. Recognizing they're on the same trail and only one can claim the prize, this inevitably results in a clash. Though like in canon, Optimus emerges victorious, burying Dreadwing under a pile of snow and offering his Iacon aides a chance to retreat, one they don't take, and so are regrettably scrapped when they attempt to go toe-to-toe with a Prime. Contacting Raph and Agent Fowler, Optimus then questions if there are any nearby human installations, with the pair informing him of a military base which is the most logical place for the uncovered relic to now be located. Using his standing as a special agent, Fowler is then quickly able to evacuate the place, giving Optimus a clear run, though unfortunately when he attempts to depart with his artifact, Dreadwing appears, ready for round 2. Having a great deal of respect for the Honourable Decepticon, Optimus does not want to fight him, even suggesting he defect as their goals are more closely aligned than the bulky jet fighter might believe. However, being far too loyal to the cause and his master to ever entertain the notion of deserting, Dreadwing flatly refuses, forcing the pair to do battle once again. Unfortunately for Optimus, this terrain does not favour him, as not only does it lack snow he can drop on his opponent, but also, unlike Dreadwing, he does not want to damage the base, meaning he must split his attention while trying to draw his foe away. As a result of this, Dreadwing is able to wrest control of the relic from Optimus, before bluntly informing him that he is lucky things ended this way, as while he would not hesitate to strike Prime down, his hatred for Autobots is less than his devotion to Lord Megatron, so he will withdraw for now, and scrap Optimus another day. Making good on these words, Dreadwing then takes flight, forcing Optimus to call in a ground bridge as he contemplates his failure. Next up is Ratchet and Wheeljack's mission, which for better or worse goes exactly like canon save for one important detail. Rather than creating a virus that transfers the Project Iacon database to the Autobots as they already have it, the virus instead gives them a backdoor through the warship's cloak, meaning they can always track its location, a helpful new addition in case any of their allies are captured again, even if it does come at the cost of Soundwave escaping with the Resonance Blaster. Finally, we turn our attention to Starscream and Bulkhead's mission, which more than any other is affected by the changes in this timeline, specifically the lack of Insecticons, as without Hardshot to challenge them, the duo have no trouble scrapping the paltry force of Iacon's Megatron sends and reaching their relic unopposed. However, as they will soon learn, their prize is a poison pill, rather literally, as is a chunk of toxic energon, or Tox-N, which was evidently sent to Earth due to the threat it poses. Being more than familiar with the bioweapon Megatron concocted out of this stuff during the war, Bulkhead is adamant that they must destroy it, since even sealing it in the base would be too dangerous considering its weakening properties could leach out and harm the entire team. However, Starscream has another idea. What if instead of destroying it, they used it to make the very bioweapon Megatron unleashed on them? While he does not deny it as a ruthless strategy, it is one that would work, as if they timed it right, the Decepticons would never see it coming, and the war would be over in an instant with no risk of further Autobot casualties. Gruffly, Bulkhead retorts there's just one problem. they wouldn't be Autobots anymore, since such tactics aren't how they fight, a claim which makes Starscream scowl as he petulantly mutters under his breath that he wouldn't be so sure if he knew what happened during his rescue mission. Looking back, Bulkhead tersely asks Screamy what he's mumbling about, to which the Jetbot simpers that he was just saying as the junior Autobot in this mission he will of course obey, so if the order is to destroy the Toxin, then allow him to help. Shrugging a little, Bulk grunts that in that case he can scout ahead for more Vehicons, while he, Bulkhead, will carry the Toxin. Seeing no reason to pick a fight over this, Starscream complies, becoming a jet encircling the volcano, only to find no sign of further enemies. By the time he returns to report this, Bulk has already made it most of the way up to the lava pool, though it is clear that he's in a weakened state, to the point where the scrawny Starscream feels confident he could take the Wrecker in a fight. Nonetheless, he obsequiously suggests that he take the Toxin for a while so that Bulkhead can recover his strength, as it's more practical to split the load. Though this is far from an altruistic gesture, as while he doesn't want to be anywhere near the glowing green rock, he can't afford to have Bulkhead questioning his loyalty, since if word gets around that he's still thinking like a Decepticon, it might induce RC to reveal his lie, and if that happens... no, he's not even going to think about that, since he's come too far to let his scheme fail now. Unfortunately, it seems that Bulkhead was more upset by the bioweapon plan than Starscream had initially believed, so much so that he refuses to hand the Toxin over, meaning he carries it all the way to the lip of the volcano. However, even uninjured, constant Toxin exposure is too much for the bulky bruiser, causing him to collapse just short of his goal. While looking down at the two lumps of green lying before him, Starscream weighs his options. As he had already stated, he could bring the Toxin back to base and begin constructing the weapon, though to do so he would most likely have to scrap Bulkhead and claim this was his final order, though whether the Autobots would buy that is doubtful at best. On the other hand, he could carry out his orders, which would surely earn him points with his allies, possibly have to make up for his quote-unquote lapse in judgment around the vile Spider-Woman if that ever comes out. Yes, that might prove more valuable in the long run. Not to mention if he sets off the bioweapon, he won't get to see the look in Megatron's optics as his spark is extinguished. Having made his decision, Starscream picks up the Toxin, which is surprisingly heavier than he had anticipated, and with a grunt hefts it into the lava, watching as it sinks below the molten ooze, its toxic cloud no longer a threat. From behind him, Starscream then hears the voice of Bulkhead, with it giving him such a shock he almost tumbles into the lava too, though turning around, he sees the Wrecker already making his way back to his feet in a testament to his grit. Though his voice is weak, the Jetbot can also hear pride in it, as he states that he knew Screamy would do the right thing in the end. Then as he throws an arm over the Seeker's shoulder, he calls for a ground bridge, since it's time they go home, a sentiment Starscream has no disagreements with this time. Regrouping back at base, the Autobots take a moment to debrief and assess the results of their operation, with the outcome proving less than optimal, as of the 4 relics, they retrieved 1, destroyed another, and allowed 2 to fall into Decepticon hands. However, it is not all bad, as in return for their losses, they now have a means to track their enemy, not to mention Bulkhead avoided severe injury. Thanks to this, the next few episodes are skipped as Wheeljack and Miko have no need to go on a revenge quest and Bulk doesn't need to undergo intense physical therapy, meaning the next event of note comes one morning when Jack and Raph are scrubbing images of Bumblebee off the internet. In the midst of this, Raph spots something highly unexpected, a Cybertronian escape pod, which sets everyone in the base onto high alert, as this could either be a new ally to help turn the tide of the war, or if luck's against them, a powerful Decepticon here to swear allegiance to Megatron. Figuring such an occurrence merits the utmost security, even Wheeljack is summoned back to base, so the entire Autobot detachment can intercept this pod together, with Raph bridging them right to the landing site. To their dismay, when they get close, they see that it is a Decepticon pod, meaning a new enemy is likely incoming, though in fact, it is actually an old one, as having tracked the pod too, a group of Vehicons jump out and attack the Autobots. Forming up, the assorted heroes begin waging their counterattack, having become quite a cohesive unit, with even Starscream and Wheeljack slotting easily into the formation, as the former takes the air to handle the jet Vehicons, while the latter uses his explosives to blast enemies or create cover with smoke so his allies can move and attack. However, in the end, it is not any of the team who bring the battle to a close, as out of nowhere an unfamiliar red, white and blue bot bursts onto the scene and begins showing off his marksmanship, dropping Vehicons left and right. Furrowing her brow, RC asks if this guy's on their side, though it seems there isn't time for answers, as in his eagerness to impress, the stranger accidentally ignites the pod's leaking energon trail, forcing the Autobots to fall back as the Vehicons are instantly incinerated. Proving himself even more of a show-off, the newcomer then begins to gloat until he is put in his place by both RC and Starscream, who chastise this recklessness. However, in contrast, Optimus is impressed by his valor, and after learning that he is both an Autobot named Smokescreen and a fellow disciple of Alpha Trion, welcomes the rookie into their ranks. At once, Starscream begins considering the opportunity this poses, as finally he will have a subordinate within the Autobots, someone he can command at his beck and call, and someone to do the drudge work so that he no longer has to. Though, as he will soon learn, this may not be worth the cost, as not only is Smokescreen a reckless glory hound, but he is also a braggart, something Starscream cannot stand, as he has always loathed bragging. At least, when others do it. And worst of all, he is so exuberant that it's like dealing with a protoform hopped up on red energon. Speaking of which, it is not long before Raph finds some of that very substance here on Earth. Thanks to Starscream being an ally, Optimus, Bumblebee, and RC are able to recover it without any issue and in its entirety. As a result of this, Ratchet is more than enough to begin studying and conducting experiments on, with its utility coming in a most unexpected way, as rather than just being a boost for the Autobots, its composition allows the Docbot to make a breakthrough with his synthetic energon project, with Ratchet theorizing that by mixing the two types of energon he could make a stable fuel that significantly enhances their strength and speed, without the drawback inherent to synthetic energon, which is that it causes the user to burn through their natural energon reserves faster, making it unsustainable and a long-term detriment overall. The only question is, how should he test his new creation, as while the simple machines he fuels with the fusion do run smoother, they can only give him limited data. Showing himself eager to help once again, Smokescreen volunteers to be the guinea pig, gushing that any doctor chosen by the great Optimus Prime must be a genius, a claim which makes Starscream roll his optics as he also hates brown-nosing. Once again, except when he does it. Nonetheless, here Ratchet refuses Smokescreen's help, stating that he still has a long way to go before he's comfortable giving anyone synthetic energon. Subsequently, the Autobots experience another lull as Ratchet works on his project and Optimus continues decrypting the Iacon database, though it seems that they're not the only ones hard at work, as up on the Decepticon warship, Megatron has tasked Soundwave with not only continuing his own decryption, but also creating false sensor readings to distract the Autobots while they collect the relics. Ever the devoted servant, Soundwave delivers, so that just as Optimus uncovers a new artifact, another unforeseen one appears on their scanners. Figuring the Decepticons must also be after this, Prime sets out at once, taking RC, Bulkhead, and Bumblebee with him in anticipation of a fight, though in all actuality, this is just a wild goose chase so that Megatron can lay claim to the newest artifact. Unfortunately for him, this is none other than the Star Saber, an ancient blade made by Soulless Prime, which seemingly only a Prime can remove from the mountain in which it is buried. Recognizing this, the Decepticon leader's objective becomes keeping the saber away from Optimus at all cost, with him ordering his forces to move the mountain if that is what it takes to load the sword onto the warship. Meanwhile, back at base, Ratchet has at last picked up the Star Saber's signal, though to his dismay the away team are outside comm range, meaning the task of investigating this reading must fall to the two most junior Autobots, Starscream and Smokescreen. In spite of his less than glowing view of Smokescreen, the Jetbot cannot deny that he is pleased, as this will be his first time leading an Autobot mission, and while one rookie subordinate is a far cry from the legions he had as commander of the Decepticons, it is a start, which for now is enough to satiate his ambition. To this end, he haughtily instructs Smokescreen to follow him, with the pair employing stealth as they slip through the ground bridge and begin making their way towards the signal. As expected, this leads them right to the Star Saber and the Decepticon excavation effort, with Starscream feeling his energon run cold as he spies Megatron himself heading up the operation. Knowing better than to face his former master and all his minions at once, Starscream instructs Smokescreen to fall back, and they'll try contacting Prime or one of the others, though it seems his words are in one auditory sensor and out the other with the rookie, as before he can even finish his command, Smokescreen has taken off at a sprint towards the enemy. Unsurprisingly, this immediately gives their position away, and recognizing how allowing a subordinate to die the first time he is entrusted with command would hamper his ambitions, Starscream reluctantly enters the fray to back him up. Unfortunately, as he surmised earlier, 2 against an army inevitably leads to defeat, though being the wily schemer that he is, Starscream makes sure to leave his comm line open during the whole debacle, ensuring that Ratchet knows where they are, and more importantly, where to deploy reinforcements. As luck would have it is around this time that the Docbot also re-establishes communications with the other team, meaning that not long after Starscream announces his and Smokescreen's surrender, Optimus, RC, Bulkhead, and Bumblebee burst into view. Taking point, RC commands Bulkbee, Starscream, and Smokescreen to fall in with her, evidently intent on taking the fight to the comms, though this is far from their true objective, as while they play distraction, Optimus tears up the mountain in his truck form, just as it is lifted into the air. Knowing that this could be the moment that determines the fate of the Decepticons, Megatron himself leads the chase after his rival, opening fire with everything he has. For a moment it seems as though victory will be his, as when a purple laser strikes Optimus' side, he is apparently forced from his vehicle form and sent flying, only to reach out his hand at the last second and wrap it around the hilt of the Star Saber. At once the landscape of the battle changes, as the Autobots feel their morale raise at the sight of Optimus clutching the ancient blade of the Primes, while in contrast, every Decepticon is struck with a sense of impending doom and dread. However, this is not all they are struck with, as wielding the sword as if it were made for him, Optimus cleanly cuts through the mountain itself before unleashing a streak of blue energy which flies through the air and slams into the warship, doing serious damage and forcing the Decepticons into a hasty retreat. When the Autobots return to Outpost Omega-1, the mood is a mixture of celebration and condemnation, as while everyone is awed by the power of the Star Saber and what it might do for their cause, there is still the matter of Smokescreen to deal with. As he was the one who led him, it falls to Starscream to scold the rookie, an act which he has much practice with, snarling that Smokescreen had better never disobey his orders again, or he may find the blast that scraps him comes from behind. Though, for some reason, Starscream finds no pleasure in seeing this young hothead hang his head in shame, an oddity, as making others feel small was one of his great joys when he was commander of the Decepticons. It doesn't make any sense, though what is even stranger is the words that come from his lips next, as he states that while Smokescreen is a fool, he is also ambitious, and despite what some here may say, ambition is not a fault, so long as it is tempered with pragmatism. At this, Smokescreen smiles ever so slightly and vows to do better next time, earning him a snide dismissal, though no further rebukes. Meanwhile, Optimus is in the midst of a deep conversation of his own, though in his case it is with a projection of Alpha Trion inside the Star Saber, as he instructs his protege to find the final 4 Iacon relics, known as the Omega Keys, as when combined, they may hold the secret to restoring Cybertron itself. Understanding the gravity of this pronouncement, all attention is therefore turned to the acquisition of these keys, the first being located in Egypt. Eager to redeem himself, Smokescreen volunteers to go get it, though Starscream, reminding the rookie what he said earlier about pragmatism, states that Prime should go, since with his new weapon, he could handle any threat on his own. Unfortunately, it seems that he is alone in this thinking, as the others don't want Optimus to have to shoulder this burden on his own, with a compromise being reached that Optimus will go, taking both Smokescreen and Starscream with him. Truthfully, the Jetbot isn't quite sure how he got conscripted into this mission, as he didn't even want to go in the first place, after the scrap show of their last outing, but seeing the decision's been made, he gloomily follows Prime and Smokescreen through the ground bridge. As it turns out, this particular key is housed in some ancient temple, as the primitive humans believe the relic to be a gift from their god, though in that moment, Starscream is too busy being unhappy to care, as now not only is he here getting sand in his servos, but due to the passages being cramped by Cybertronian standards, he is forced to slump his wings and press them quite uncomfortably against himself just to fit in the door. Spotting the Greybot's discomfort, Prime offers Starscream the option to guard the entrance, an offer he is quick to accept, though one he will just as quickly come to regret, as in the distance he spots an inbound and all too familiar flying object, Megatron's Cybertronian jet form. Urgently, the defector cries out for Prime and the rookie, though it seems they are too deep in the tomb to hear him, meaning Starscream is all alone when Megatron shifts back into his bot form and stands over his former second-in-command with an incredibly sinister smirk. Gulping deeply, Starscream attempts to buy time for his allies to return, or possibly just until Megatron starts hurting him, by asking what he's doing here, though this goes about as well as one would expect, with the Decepticon leader snarling at him not to play dumb and to tell him where the relic is if he wishes to avoid his wrath. Recognizing that all he's doing by refusing is buying himself needless pain, as it won't take Megatron long to think to check the tomb, Starscream prepares to point, though as he turns to face the entrance he is tackled by Smokescreen mere moments before another energy wave from the Star Saber goes slamming into Megatron, launching him a considerable distance away. Stepping forth, Optimus orders his nemesis to turn back now, as he has no power to combat the Star Saber. Though cackling wickedly, Megatron replies that this is where he is wrong, as he reveals the Apex armor Dreadwing stole from him back in Antarctica, and claims that this suit is impervious to damage, meaning it seems they're at a stalemate. Refusing to believe this, Optimus manifests another streak of blue energy, though to his horror Megatron endures this, as while he is still made to feel the pain of the blow, his body is protected from the damage. Not only that, but when he retaliates a few moments later with a punch, it becomes clear that his already considerable strength has been augmented by the armor, making this anyone's fight, with the question being who will succumb to the pain first, Optimus or Megatron. Meanwhile, having risen to his feet once more, Starscream questions Smokescreen on whether he has the key, with the rookie grinning proudly as he confirms this. Nodding approvingly, the Jetbot instructs him to get some distance then call Ratchet, since right now, their priority needs to be getting the artifact away from Megatron. For a moment, it looks as though Smokescreen is going to protest that he wants to stay and fight, though remembering his recent dressing down, he instead simply salutes and then drives off to find a good place to make the call. Unfortunately, before Starscream can become a jet and follow after him, a loud clang rings through the Egyptian night, and as Starscream looks over at the source of the sound, he sees the Star Saber hurtling through the air, having evidently been knocked from Prime's hand by a well-placed punch from Megatron. At once, the two combatants scramble for it, with it seeming as though the Decepticon will reach it first, as he takes to the air as a jet. Though, just before he can lay his metallic fingers upon the hilt, a new challenger enters the fray, that being Starscream, who by virtue of having a more aerodynamic jet mode snakes ahead of his old master and grabs it first. In an instant, a sense of elation and power the likes of which he has never felt floods Starscream, as he realizes that with this blade in his hand, he can do whatever he wants. He could slay the Prime or Megatron and decide the outcome of the war, or else scrap them both, and declare himself supreme ruler of Autobots and Decepticons alike. So long as he has the Star Saber, none could possibly oppose him, and it would be his banner that flies above a renewed Cybertron. Not only that, but if he wanted, he could have Earth too, and every other planet in this galaxy, this universe, all at his fingertips. But then he stops, as his mind turns away from visions of a glorious future and towards the past, specifically his time among the Autobots, to the mundane moments, the humorous and even the aggravating ones, and those he has spent them with. Somewhere along the way, they became something more than a means to an end. They became his comrades. A disquieting thought for one who has always prioritized himself and only himself, but it is true. Looking into his reflection as is cast in the Star Saber's glow, he is forced to face another truth. This is not his weapon. He is no Prime, and so with a heavy spark he relinquishes ultimate power, and tosses the Star Saber back to Optimus. This decision seems to give the Autobot leader a second wind, as he fights more fiercely than he had before, though in truth Starscream barely notices, as he is lost in thought, trying to figure out at what point he changed, at what point he became the sort of fool he used to scorn, who would sacrifice personal gain for some abstract notion of right. He does not know, and perhaps he never will, though he does at least accept one last truth. In spite of his best efforts, he has allowed himself to become an Autobot. Suddenly, the burst of green and whirring sound of a ground bridge pulls him from his reverie. As he looks back, he sees Smokescreen escaping through the portal, the key still firmly in his possession. Feeling some of his old scorn coming back, Starscream jeers that Megatron has failed, the comfortable familiarity of the taunt making him feel like himself again. Likewise, the fury on his old master's face coupled with the knowledge that he cannot touch him brings the jetbot a moment of joy. Then, without another word, he transforms and flies through the ground bridge, with Prime following soon after. As the portal closes behind them, a cheer goes up in the base, as the other Autobots are quick to celebrate the recovery of the first key, and the heroes who carried out the daring feat. Feeling he deserves this praise after all he's given up, Starscream does not hesitate to join in this time, but before he goes, he feels a hand on his wing, and as he looks back, he sees Prime smiling down at him, before giving the jetbot his most earnest thanks. Unfortunately, the next key hunt does not go quite so well for the Autobots, as like in canon, Knockout makes use of the Resonance Blaster to take down both RC and Bumblebee with limited effort, or not long after, Bulkhead and Smokescreen engage Dreadwing in a forest. Thankfully, this latter attempt at least ends in success, as without a rogue Starscream to knock him out, Smokescreen is able to recover the key, though this does come at the cost of making him even more insufferable. Furthermore, due to not sulking over his failure, Smokescreen is still at base when Optimus decodes the final coordinate and learns the last key is inside Smokescreen himself. Due to having the phase shifter, there's a simple procedure for Ratchet to recover it, meaning that now the only question is how to obtain the key currently in the Decepticons' possession. Surprisingly, it seems that Wheeljack of all bots is central to the solution, as by using the back door he, Ratchet, and Raph installed in the warship's cloak, they are able to track where the Decepticons are, and most likely where the key can be found. Here Starscream once more proves his utility, as he reveals that he knows the location of the vault in which the key will be stored, and the code to access it, as if Megatron is the same arrogant fool he always is, he won't have bothered changing it, as he assumes no unauthorized visitor could make it past him and his Decepticon stooges, an assumption he would quite enjoy proving wrong. Looking impressed, Bulkhead asks if Screamy really wants to take on the Chief Con and his minions, though shaking his head vigorously. Starscream replies that he never said anything of the sort. Then, with a devious smile, he asks Ratchet if they have any of that unaltered red energon left. The ground bridge portal bursts to life in a small out-of-the-way supply room, before closing a few moments later, having seemingly had nothing come in or out. However, that is because the one who emerged is travelling at speeds too fast for the naked optic to perceive. Slowing down for a moment to look around, Starscream cannot help but smirk, as even the Vehicons walking the halls do not see him, meaning he is the run of the place. Making good on this, the former 2IC takes flight in his jet mode, as this is far faster than his legs, with the seemingly stationary bots becoming a blur as he makes his way into the heart of the warship. Only when the vault comes into view does Starscream revert, reaching out his thin-pointed fingers and punching in the code D16 as the doors whoosh open for him. Sneering slightly at Megatron's slavish inability to let go of the past, Starscream steps inside, and as expected, the key lies waiting for him on a pedestal. Grabbing it up with a grin, the defector then turns back the way he came, and after another flight passes through the ground bridge portal just as it's beginning to close. Truly a flawless victory on his part. Now that all 4 keys are in the Autobots' possession, Optimus at last reveals the means through which they can be used to revive Cybertron. They must be placed inside the Omega Lock, an ancient artifact in the Sea of Rust, which is said to be a conduit for the All-Spark itself. While most of the team are somewhat disquieted at the fact that Optimus has been keeping this from them, Starscream is truthfully unconcerned, as he is more than used to his leaders lying or otherwise keeping secrets, and caring more for how exactly they're going to get to Cybertron, as he doubts they can storm the Decepticons' space bridge again. However, here Optimus has a simple and elegant solution, as by withdrawing the Forge of Solus Prime from storage, he is able to begin upgrading their ground bridge into a functional space bridge on par with or possibly even superior to what the Decepticons have. As this is happening, the remaining Autobots set to work gathering all the relics they have acquired from storage, since while they don't necessarily believe they will have to fight when they reach their homeworld, they are all in agreement that any precaution they can take to ensure this mission succeeds is worth taking. As a result, Starscream is entrusted with the Spark Extractor, which this time he sees for the act of faith it is. However, in spite of all their preparations, when Optimus, RC, Bumblebee, Bulkhead, Smokescreen and Starscream arrive on Cybertron, they find nothing. No ambushes, no final trials they must overcome, nothing but a long walk through the Sea of Rust. Finally, after several hours of trekking, the team reach the coordinates specified in Alpha Trion's message, but to their surprise, all they find is a rusty old plinth. Knowing better than to judge a book by its cover, Optimus' teammates approach, with his hunch paying off, as at once the Omega Keys all start to glow. Then, seemingly in response, glyphs begin lighting up on the plinth, which stretches down into the ground itself, so that the barren desert landscape is converted into a shrine of sorts. Smiling softly, Optimus takes a moment to thank his comrades for being here with him, as now all that is left is to place the keys into the lock, and their journey will be complete. Though, as is always the way, nothing can be so simple, as at that moment a space bridge portal opens up, and out of it marches Soundwave, Dreadwing, and Megatron. At once the Autobots prepare for a fight, though raising his hands, Megatron leers that this is not why they are here, as while he had originally hoped the tracker he placed on the Omega Key would reveal the location of the Autobots' base, when he learned that they had come to Cybertron instead, he and his followers simply had to see what they are up to. Though, now that they know their goal is to restore their homeworld, they have no intention of standing in their way. Knowing Megatron better than to take this at face value, Optimus demands to know what his nemesis gets out of this, to which Megatron placidly replies, the same as any survivor of the war, a home, though it is a shame so many did not survive, such as Cliffjumper. Predictably, this caused the Autobots' hackles to raise even further, with RC snarling that she'll scrap Megatron if he dares mention Cliff again. Though smirking, Decepticon leader retorts that her anger is misplaced, as he's not the one who killed her friend, his gaze now firmly on Starscream. For a moment, the Jetbot prepares to protest, though it seems he doesn't have to, as RC does it for him, stating with certainty that she doesn't believe him. However, this just causes a malicious grin to twist Megatron's already twisted features, as he adopts a faux sorrowful tone, and says that he didn't want to come to this, but if she insists, he does have proof. At these words, Soundwave steps forward, and as his visor lights up, everyone sees the same thing. Security camera footage of the Decepticon warship's bridge. Fear grips Starscream at this sight, as he knows exactly what is to come, but there is nothing he can do, as he sees himself leer down at a badly wounded Cliffjumper as he is brought before him. Then, without mercy, the Starscream in the video raises his fist and rams it through Cliff's spark, terminating him. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.